So today I will give you an overview of the key elements that we have been implemented and how, this program has been helping in the process to reinforcing food security and safety in our region. So as an introduction, CABI has more than 100-year funded, as is an international organization, not for profit, with a very strong scientific base. We are very well known for all the CABI scientific publications, like the CAB abstracts, the compendium of plant protection, among other tools that CABI is been developing. And we work in key topics in agriculture and the environment. Together with over 49 member countries around the world, the member countries are the ones to actually align the CABI work, and it helps to actually shape our programs and the new initiatives in every region where we have the interventions. So those are our areas of expertise, crop health, and inside of crop health, you will see today one of the key examples that we have to highlight today, which is the Plantwise program, where we can see the integration of several of those areas of expertise, like digital development tools, but also how we have been implementing all those techniques together with the national extension system, targeting the key pests that we have in each country, but also facing the new invasions, biological invasions in the case of invasive species, and trying to compile this information with data to, actually show the impact using our publishing tools and bringing, of course, the value chains and trade as part of this, because we are helping also farmers to increase productivity, in those key commodities and crops in each country. When we're talking about sustainable production, integrated pest management plays a very important role. Looking forward to see what actually is available in each country, how we could integrate all those methods of control to increase the sustainability in terms of the agricultural production in each country. We have different challenges when we are working at the field level. Normally, one single crop is not effective for only one pest or one disease. We have a complex of phytosanitary problems that we need to take into account when we are establishing and developing the integrated pest management programs. Another challenge, as I mentioned before, are new species coming into the region, new invasive species affecting significantly the agricultural production, and some of those are actually one of the key reasons why farmers are implementing, some of those conventional practices and focusing majorly in chemical control to actually face the different new pests and diseases that are coming into the region. In these slides, I'm just highlighting some of those. We have like the people related to the agricultural production in Brazil and other countries in South America. You probably remember the high impact of Helicobacter parmigiana caused, after its introduction to the country. But now we are talking and discussing a lot in terms of the impact of the Fusarium oxysporium, the tropical race 4, in the banana production in Latin America. This is just to give us an example of the different, challenges we are having in this sense. I just mentioned, like, I was coming just from the Caribbean, where I was last week dealing with one new invasive species, that is attacking the fruit, the fruit production in that region, and actually threatening and actually making all the region concerned, trying to avoid that species actually gets introduced in other countries as well. But, talking about the integrated pest management and the key components that we actually use, as part of the sustainable production package, biological control plays a very important role. And I was actually mentioning also in the beginning, just how it's interesting every time we get a new species introduced into our region and we start to conduct the biosurveys, we normally get very positive results in terms of the different parasitoids, predators, entomopathogens that we can find, suppressing the population of those pests. So that is thanks to the high biodiversity that the neotropical region is well known to have. So in terms of, biological control in the sustainable production, scenario, it plays a very important role. And one of the ideas for us is also, I just mentioned the high biodiversity we actually have, but also it's very interesting when we have to see, you know, in terms of the complex of natural enemies that we can find, you know, related to some of those key pests and diseases. But how much of that actually farmers know? How familiarized the technicians that are working day by day with farmers are in terms of, you know, to present the biocontrol programs and the different, even the native, the indigenous natural enemies in a proper way to farmers, and how we could include, you know, that component as part of the other methods of control that farmers, they need to apply. I just mentioned, you know, how complex it is in the field when we have multiple phytosanitary problems affecting the crops. So needs to be considered when we are, you know, organizing the integrated pest management. So as we normally see in the field, every time we get a new problem, a new pest or a disease attacking the crop, the first response from the farmers community is always the chemical control. And here I would like to reinforce that some of those packages I would show you today, actually we have and we use the chemical component, but in a very efficient way, using, you know, less toxic but highly effective pesticides that can help us also with the different biological interventions, you know, across the crop season. The problem with that, what we can see there is the, you know, wrong use, you know, incorrect use of that component, the chemical component, having, you know, in some cases, the use of heavy toxic pesticides in a very high frequency, which complicates a bit, you know, when we are considering the sustainability of those practices. So in that sense, we all know that, you know, when you are increasing the frequency of application of some of those active ingredients, we can having as a result, you know, the pest resistance that actually can be increased. And with that, we will have, you know, the increase also in terms of the cost of production, because the farmers need to be increasing every time the frequency of applications. And that is ending, you know, with different challenges in terms of the problems that bad practice actually cause in terms of the health of the community in the rural areas, but also the environmental issues. As a response to that, CABI has been establishing and coordinating the Plantwise program, which is a global initiative where we work together with the key partners in each one of those countries where we have the intervention, looking forward to reinforce and contribute, you know, to bring more sustainable practices to actually help in the process of increasing food security, but also safety of the agricultural production in each country. In that program, we had been establishing the network of plant clinics. The plant clinics are basically the point where the extension officers meet the farmers to try to understand what are the major phytosanitary problems affecting their crops and where farmers are getting their recommendations for those key problems presenting in those plant clinics. So far, we have been, you know, having this intervention in 34 countries, having more than 5,000 plant clinics established around the world, 13,000 plus plant doctors that have been trained. We call plant doctors the field technician extensionists that have been trained as plant doctors and who are in the front line, you know, delivering the recommendations to farmers. Those are the countries we have been working in Latin America, 3 countries in Central America, 4 in the Caribbean, and 4 countries in South America. Those are the countries where we have been implementing the program. From the beginning, one of the challenges we had is, you know, the disconnection and lack of communication, sometimes inside of the same institutions, you know, in terms of sharing information and experience for what they are doing at the field level. So the Plantwise program was looking forward to establish this kind of system, a national plant health system that could bring the different actors like extensionists, but also the researchers, the regulators, and the input supply companies, to work with us to compile those, sustainable production package that we could actually deliver to farmers. It's very interesting when we establish this kind of very good communication, because extensionists, they will be able to send information back to the researchers to see if the technology that has been developed in the agricultural area is actually getting adopted at the field level, and what are the major challenges in that sense. So for us, that kind of communication channel and sharing of experience and result was critical for the success of the program at the national level. Then we have to understand, for one side, the farmers' needs. And in terms of the needs, even where they were concentrating and what were the key areas in each rural community for us to establish that kind of key point of communication with them, the plant clinics, but also to understand the mandate of each one of those institutions working with us, and all these were suffering. If you see the program and how it's structured and implemented in one country in South America versus another country in Central America, sometimes looks quite different because it has to go through an adaptation process for us to ensure we are delivering in the proper way, following the mandate of each one of those institutions. So in this way, we have been establishing what we call fixed plant clinics. Some institutions, especially the one helping us with the laboratories, with the diagnostic laboratories, they prefer to work in a fixed model where farmers actually bring the samples there. Sometimes if they are close in key areas in the city, but also having all the right equipment to process the sample and deliver the diagnosis and the proper recommendation. So the mobile plant clinics, some of those extension agencies, they work around the different municipalities or local communities, and they move around and they inform farmers where they will be, for farmers to be aware to bring the samples to the technicians, and also complementing this with the farmers' visits, just to see in terms of the level of adoption and if the recommendations were efficient to solve the problem presented at plant clinics. So we also have to learn in terms of the key agricultural poles in each country, and this is established by each one of those key national partners. I'm bringing here as an example Peru, where the Ministry of Agriculture is running the whole initiative at the national level, establishing the first areas where they wanted us to be concentrated, bringing the different methodology, but adjusting the methodology to each region. As you can see, we have here in the Amazon area, but we also have Puno, Cusco, which are the Andean area as well. So as you can imagine, the crop will be different. The way that we establish the collaboration with the local government also varies from area to area. So it has to go for a lot of adaptation process until we create the network of different plant clinics in each country. As another example, we have here Nicaragua, where we have been working in Nueva Segovia and León, which is the Occident area, the West area and the North. And down there, we have been establishing all the plant clinics, but in this case, working together with Farmers Association cooperatives that from 2005, so far until now, that is still running in a proper way with a very strong ownership. We initiated the whole process, collecting the data coming to those plant clinics in paper, but now we have been using more digital tools to facilitate the gather of that information, but also the use of that information because it's faster, in terms of the access to that information when we use the digital tools in the e-plant clinics, as we call it now. Another very important component was the monitoring and evaluation part, where we actually established different activities and monitoring visits for us to get to know in terms of the quality of each one of those plant clinics, and the quality was related to the quality of recommendation and the level of adoption at the field level. So for me, that has been critical too, to gather all this information and to have the evidence for the further publications that I will show you today. The program also includes the gender component, bringing together the youth and women as part of the activities in each region. Here is just an example from Cochabamba, Bolivia, where we work with the Tarata Technological Institute. The professors here are the ones leading the whole operation together with the last year students of agronomy, where they have the opportunity to deliver that technical assistance to farmers in that plant clinic in the municipality. So for us, in terms of the integrated pest management, one of the key points is to have a correct identification of the phytosanitary problem. And I'm saying this because several problems that we are seeing at the field level sometimes are related to a grown process of diagnosis, which is taken to grown recommendations. And of course, that won't be efficient in terms of controlling the key phytosanitary problems at the field level. So having that kind of network, the national network of diagnosis, which is also connected to a regional and international one, we have been able to help also the NPPOs, the National Plant Protection Organizations in each country, to identify not only the current pests, the ones that are present, but the new one, the new introductions that we were actually getting to know through the plant clinics every time that we were receiving a new sample with a new pest or disease. So as part of integrated pest management, as I mentioned, biological control plays a very important role, but the evaluation side, in terms of how we have been implementing the biological control programs, what are the key factors, for the success of that program, or even for the failure of some of those activities, that has to be compiled. And it's a pity because we can see also other programs, other initiatives being implemented in Latin America where, very interesting activities were done, but with no documentation in place, which it makes it very difficult for us, like to replicate and to get to know how that specific program or initiative did it at the field level. So we have been trying to capture the information, but also use the data for us to show in terms of the evidence of the impact through the evaluation and as part of the monitoring activities implemented. So as I mentioned, the program has been reinforcing, the diagnostic system, the national network that we have now established in all those countries, thanks to the work with the Ministry of Agriculture, with the scientific community, which include also universities, research institutions, to get to know the key phytosanitary problems, but also working together with the complex of natural enemies, including indigenous natural enemies, and the way how we could incorporate the conservation practices as part of the integrated pest management approach. That has been quite interesting. And I will have to say here that the fact that we have been getting good results at the field is the fact that one of the key reasons why farmers are getting more interested to join the program and get to know better, the complex of natural enemies that we have in each country. This is just an example for farm armyworm, the management of farm armyworm, where we have the conservation practices. I'm reinforcing here some of those species that we have been identifying and that we know that they are attacking the farm armyworm population at the field level, those indigenous parasitoids, larvae parasitoids, together with ex-parasitoids that most of them, they are available at the commercial level, like trichogramma species, but also having new commercializations of Telenomus, Remus for these specific species. And then, the biosurvey is taking us to very good results, having here an example from Proimpa, Bolivia, where they have been isolated this entomopathogen, and now they have in the market this new biopesticide, which is giving us a very good result integrating with the other practices. I was speaking about new species. The croton scale is one of those, where we have been evaluating together with the Ministry of Agriculture in the Caribbean, what are the key practices, to bring the population down and help farmers in that process, but evaluating what are the natural enemies, that they are present in the ground, what we have in the commercial level, to integrate that information as part of the sustainable management package that we are creating for these new pests. So the idea is to create this kind of collaboration platforms, bringing all those institutions and key partners to work together, to facilitate the information to farmers. So of course, there are some challenges that we have in some countries. Some of those, as you can see here in the case of Brazil, they have a very good amount of different bioproducts registered and commercialized in each country, which is very important because we can see that whatever we have at the commercial level, it will influence quite significantly the adoption of those biological control agents, as part of the integrated pest management approach. And then, bringing one of those cases, the Tuta absoluta case, which is one of those that I would like to highlight today, especially because of the importance of this species in the tomato production in Latin America. It's a species that got actually introduced in new regions in Asia and Africa. I was just reading a paper where they consider Tuta absoluta as the Ebola in Africa. So that gives you a kind of indication in terms of the, a strong impact that these species causing in the tomato production in those countries. So this is the global distribution as we see it just now. We have been dealing with this species for so many years in South America, where it's considered to be originally from. And then, with the new introductions, trying to work in South-to-South cooperation to transfer our technology to those new invaded areas. So the idea was, to evaluate how we could switch the heavy toxic pesticide that farmers were using to less toxic pesticide that could be also efficient, but also to include the biological control and cultural practices that in this case were very important together with the ecological control. So tomato was selected because it's one of those key crops that always bring to our attention the fact that we are finding, significant amount of pesticide residue in the final products, including heavy toxic pesticides. And the fact that Tuta absoluta is one of those key phytosanitary problems in Latin America, which is highlighted as one of the key reasons why farmers are increasing the frequency of some of those applications. When we just initiated the program, was quite challenging because, as you can see here, the biological control, cultural practices were minimal as part of what we could see applied at the field level. There was a high dependency of chemicals, including some of those heavy toxic active ingredients. Integrated pest management was established, working together with farmers in the demonstration plots for them to see actually how the biocontrol agents worked, how the pheromone traps actually was giving a good results in terms of monitoring, but also with the mass trapping to bring the population down, together with different biopesticides available in each country. And here, as I mentioned before, using conservation practices for what we have present in terms of natural enemies versus what we have available in the market. And using the less toxic pesticides in the beginning just to use the residual power of some of those active ingredients and bring the different biological interventions and other practices as part of the integrated pest management program. Latin America and the whole neotropical region is quite interesting, especially for the high biodiversity. In this slide, I would like just to show the potential in terms of other natural enemies that can attack as well Tuta absoluta. But as you could see in the previous slide, trichogramma is one of those parasitoids that you see used in a big amount of areas around Latin America because it's one of the most commonly found in the market. So that it makes a big difference. So the idea was also to train the technicians for them to conduct the field visits and have this interaction with the farmers to see actually how the control in terms of the control of the pest was in the field, applying all the different recommendations that the plant clinics was given. In this article, which I strongly suggest you to review, to understand a little bit how we could establish the program, but also what were the different factors, challenges that we faced during the process. As I mentioned before, we initiated the program with a high dependency of chemical applications, and with interventions and the training of the technicians and farmers, we were able to increase the use of biological control and cultural practices, which actually helps, in the whole process and increasing, of course, the sustainability level of this approach. The idea was also to review, the cost benefits in terms of how our interventions were working, and was very satisfactory for us to see that 87.5% of the farmers evaluated, they reduced, the number of frequency of application from 22 to 8, and 75% from 20 to 6. This is a big achievement, especially in that region, in that areas where we were evaluating, the whole process. Some of those key factors were, as I mentioned before, the training of technicians and activating and putting in place a very proactive and active extension system that could actually have this contact, frequent contact with the farmers, getting to know what were the major problems, and also to transfer the sustainable practices at the field level, working together with them to see how that was applied, adopted, and what was the final results of that intervention. For us to keep training the technicians, sometimes, as you probably know, in each institution, some of those technicians change during time to time due to different reasons. We have been establishing, the training, the remote training courses like this one for crop pest diagnosis, which helps to the technicians to remember what they learn, in terms of the principles, what exactly they need to keep in mind when they are going through a diagnostic process, working with the different phytosanitary problems, even biological problems, but also abiotic problems like nutritional problems and so on. Then we also have the crop pest management, which is focused also in terms of sustainable recommendations from the different phytosanitary problems, which is giving us very good results as well in terms of helping the technicians to get up to date and to keep practicing and refreshing their knowledge. Another tool that we have been using quite a lot, I mentioned to you that it's very important to have a good amount, in terms of the portfolio of biopesticides that are registered and commercialized in each country. But at some point, working in the rural areas, people were not very clear in terms of where to buy those products. And sometimes, the extension officers were making the recommendations and farmers didn't know exactly where to get it. So the CABI bioprotection portal was actually developed to help in that process, to approximate farmers, technicians, the scientific community, to get to know very well, like what are the different bioprotection agents that we have commercialized in each country. For Latin America, we have now in the platform Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Peru, but Mexico and Costa Rica are coming soon. Costa Rica just joined the portal as well. And then you can have all the different information in the language of preference, in English, Spanish, French. So it's quite handy in that sense. And the portal can take you to the different bioproducts in base of the focus of the target pest or disease. So that is a very important one, and takes you to the distributors of those bioproducts in each country, allowing you to come from very complex lists, that was what we used to use before, to a very practical way for you to know where to get the products, who you have to call in case you need them. So the portal is also available in different formats to be used in computers, but also tablets, cell phone. So it's quite good. And also now we have the offline version of that tool. So with that, the idea was for us to make sure that the data could take us to give a better view in terms of what is happening at the field level, in terms of the different recommendations that we are having. This show you just the final result from those years, last years, but you know, in the beginning, as you can see here, biocontrol was minimal. And still the dependency of heavy chemicals are still something that we are working with the different countries, especially to increase the portfolio of bioproducts for different pests. As I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, at the field level, we have, you know, a complex of phytosanitary problems that need to take into account when you have to develop those integrated pest management package. So the didactic material that we were developing also helps as a kind of a quick guide, you know, IPM guide, taking as a model one of those tools developed by the International Organization of Biocontrol, the IOBC. We call it the green and yellow leaves, which help us to have, you know, decision management in terms of what are the key you know, strategies we can implement and remember together at the field level. This information is always transferred to the technicians in different workshops, in the training courses. We actually develop those technical materials together with technicians and with the scientific community in each country to ensure we have a good range of material to be delivered to farmers. And of course, you know, evaluating the different factors that influence in each country the adoption of those technologies that the plant clinics are transferring to farmers, trying to see if the message are clear, you know, in terms of how easy the access also for that information is, you know, and how well understood is at the field level. Like we normally try to validate all the technical materials with farmers to see if even the wording is the proper one. And of course, trying to work with them in the demonstration plots for us to show how efficiency is the technology that we are actually recommending. I will also suggest those publications that highlight also biological control as part of integrated pest management programs in Latin America and the Caribbean. Some of those are very recent and brings very fresh information in terms of the impact of those programs, you know, in terms of food security and safety. Just as a final remarks, I just would like to highlight, you know, the fact that farmers, they learn but for what they are seeing. And of course, if we have the demonstration plots providing good results, that will be, you know, a kind of clear invitation to other farmers to join the, you know, the program and the initiatives. And the farmers themselves have been one of the key disseminators of the activities and the results. You know, one farmer actually speak with the other one, and that is how the program has been, you know, getting explained and expanded the results in those rural communities. So for us, it's critical to have a very proper training of the field technicians and include very good visual aids and, you know, those kind of more didactic training materials for farmers to actually train farmers to ensure they are familiarized also with the different biological process and with the biocontrol agents and all the different recommendations that we are giving in the plant clinics. It's very important to capture the information and use the data, you know, as part of the monitoring and evaluation process to actually have the evidence in terms of how the adoption level is at the field level, but also in terms of, you know, the results in terms of efficacy of those practices. Very important as well for us to create those kind of platforms that can help, you know, in terms of getting the information of what is available in the country, but also to exchange more information and experience among the different countries. With this, I would like just to give a big thanks to all the team members of CABI in Latin America and the Caribbean, and also for all our donors community that with the financial help, they have been making possible that we can implement all those activities in Latin America. Thanks a lot.